Aaron grew up in Connecticut playing basketball and working a little with his grandfather surveying. He ended up in Sonoma County, California in 1991, working for Adobe Associates, became managing partner in 2001. He's licensed in both California and Nevada and was a CLSA state president in 2010. Aaron has served on the West Fed as a delegate as well and worked with the Board of Engineers and Professional Surveyors with exam review and development, and has been able to present land surveying topics such as tonight's business topic, legal descriptions, record of surveys, and other topics at various venues. Aaron studied business administration in college and is still a managing partner at Adobe Associates in Santa Rosa, California. Aaron has been married to his wife, Jennifer, for probably more than 25 years now. This is this was last year. So, and his two children. And so, as always, I appreciate your time, Aaron. And this will be another useful topic, I think, for, a lot of younger business owners that are becoming licensed and ready to kind of pursue the next step in their career. And some of them are starting businesses. So I think this is a useful topic that I think everybody will gain a lot of information from. So as always, I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Trent. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, you're good.
All right, good. So as Trent mentioned, I've gone around and talked about various things with business. What I found out is surveyors are really good surveyors, and then all of a sudden they hang a shingle and have no idea what the hell they're doing. And then income statements, balance sheets, expenses, taxes, all that stuff starts to rear up their ugly heads. And then they figure out how to run a business. However, this presentation was geared a little bit differently, was more so for, let's say, the proverbial party chiefs, field techs, office managers, to help, well, I say it right up top, help your boss help the company. And so I was just trying to think, what are the things that I want to look for in my staff to help make decisions? We run anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 field crews. We're a staff of about 45 people. So I can also, run a little bit further into what are some of the other things that you want to evaluate when purchasing equipment, helping make decisions when it is in regards to trucks, equipment, computers, things like that. So that's all. If there are any questions or anything, I don't know, ping Trent or bring something in the chat, and I'll try not to screw it up. The other thing is, this is generally how I do my PowerPoints, is just in a Word doc. And then after I'm happy with how it looks, I push it over into a PowerPoint slideshow. So I'll just go through them. Trent will send this out at some point. And thank you, buddy. And you can just take notes. And so in business, when you first start your business, what's your product or service? For us, it's generally a service, professional service, but there is a product. It's called a map, intelligence, consultation. This is how we generate the revenue. Every company has to generate revenue. It's actually, I think, part of the IRS code, that if you're not generating revenue, you're technically not a business. And then you got to generate at least a profit margin 1 out of 5 years or something. For any of you that have read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, it's fantastic. This says, do you have the right people on the bus? So I tell my surveyors, I'm not really looking for technicians. I want surveyors. And so that's why I say, do you have the right people on the bus? Did you deliver your product or service? Profit? Heck yeah. Without a profit, your company just won't survive. To tell you the truth, I think that one word is the hardest thing for a surveyor to admit, that they generate a profit. I wish it wasn't the case, but anybody that talks to me, I'll tell them, yeah, we generate almost 20% profit. And if they want to talk to me about, well, what does that mean and why is that important? in short, you want me to be profitable, because if I'm not profitable, I won't be here in a year or two. And if I'm not here in a year or two, well, who will you call, and will you have to start the whole process over again? So I wish surveyors would get comfortable with the word profit. I know we are around here and with our staff. We share our financials with our staff. We go through quarterly meetings. We show them the revenue, the expenses, the profit. We also educate them a little bit each month on how you run a company and what are the things that we're looking at. I'll never forget one time when they saw 2 new trucks roll into the company. Someone said, this was like in 2010. Someone said, well, it looks like we have enough money to buy 2 trucks. Well, by the time you go through the IRS and the taxes and the write-offs, the trucks are a great purchase for year end to help with exposure to expenses. So you just gotta teach and educate and train. So slide 3, profits required. You have to have a profit or you just won't survive. So just a short list. There's more things, but why do you need profit? Well, that's where your benefits come from: bonuses, pay increases, year-end parties, paying for you to attend seminars, conferences, special recognitions. All these things that I just listed, I do find pretty typical with survey firms. All survey firms are pretty much doing this. You know, they're going to give you some sort of a benefit. Might not be as robust as other companies, but there'll be something, a vacation, even if it's 1 week a year, a couple holidays, bonuses. Again, they may be pretty nominal, but at least a Christmas bonus, I find most, pay increase, generally a Christmas party, even if it's going down to the local restaurant, having a few beers and a dinner, paying for seminars and conferences, special recognitions. So for our company, you know, we have quarterly profit sharing. So every quarter people are getting checks, and they average anywhere from 1,000 to 8,000 a quarter, you know, depending on where you are as an employee. Bonuses, pay increases, year-end parties. It's all stuff that we do. It just depends on what level you're doing these at. So you can drive profit. This is always a really great conversation. And I'll tell you, I don't know if we can do quick surveys on this Zoom, but it'd be really interesting to see the hands. If you were determined next year to be more profitable, how would you do it? And most surveyors would sit there and look for reduced costs. I'm going to find a way to minimize my costs. And yet there's this opportunity here to increase revenue, which, to be honest, that's what I always try to do. When we look at our profit margins and we say, well, we got to increase revenue. That's where I'm shooting for, because reducing cost, or you can do both. This one in here, you can, but for our company, we have a controller that really works hard to minimize our costs, always looking at, are we on the best cell phone network? What software can we minimize or reduce? So someone's already paying attention to that. So, but doing both is always fiscally responsible. Here we go. All right. I guess I can take part of the poll.
That's right.
Go, Trent. You're my hero. You become my hero more and more every day. But see, I've already given away the answers, right? So everyone's going to say, "Oh, of course you increased revenue." But if you were actually to look behind the curtain of most survey firms, you know, they're going to say, we got to hammer, we got to reduce these costs, fuel costs, truck costs, equipment costs, all these things you're going to reduce. And you'll see further down in my slides that that's not always the wisest thing to do. So for me, I try to encourage companies, instead of reducing costs, why don't you look for a way to increase revenue? Many ways to do that, many ways. By reducing the cost for things, you drive down your costs to run or operate. So what do we got? Yeah, see that? Yeah, we got people paying attention at least.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Cost, which a half hour ago would have been about 80%, I imagine.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Mhm.
So what are the other things that you do that may cost you? By reducing the cost of your operations, what you're starting to do is ask your employees to work with older equipment that gets frustrating. It's more time consuming in the field. They're not having fun operating stuff. They want the latest and greatest. And so you're really starting to suffer at the personnel or your employee level instead of looking at other things.
In the chat, Janelle says customer service is key in my experience, which
Yep.
and that's the conversation I even have, like Aaron says, with my staff, is really we all have the same product and the same service that we're delivering, right? It's the customer service that sets us apart from anybody else, right?
It's the delivery.
Yeah,
it's two things. It's the education piece and it's the delivery.
Education, educating the client is obviously key as well, right?
And I'll get into
perfect.
I'll get into there on slide 10 goes into that customer service piece. But real quick, let's just say a survey crew is out there and the data collector. Okay, so I don't do field surveying anymore. I like to think I do, but I get in a truck, I sit in the passenger side and I go, so I get to hold the stick, right, and drive hubs, right? And they go, well, you're the goddamn owner of the company. You can do whatever you want. And I go, yeah, because I don't know how to run that stuff. All the button pushing.
Aaron's best speech is, I don't know what equipment we use, is just yellow.
I go, people ask me all the time, Aaron, what are you running? I go, I don't know. I see these guys running out of the building with yellow and blue boxes. But anyway, like here's a quick breakdown. The data collector keeps glitching, it freezes, you got to reboot, all these things. And so here's a $6,000 data collector, 4 years, has a $1,500 a year cost, $125 a month, or $6.25. That's darn near a cost of a Starbucks these days. Well, a fancy Starbucks. So at the cost of a Starbucks, you can turn over a new piece of equipment to your staff. It's going to excite them. They're going to be enthused to work. It's going to be more efficient for them to be doing the work. And, it's just a great business decision at that point. So does not give you the excuse to be negligent with the care of the company's equipment. So here's one of the things that I talk to my surveyors about is I had the same equipment for 6-7 years. I took care of it. I kept it clean. I kept the batteries good. Everything always worked. I do find nowadays that, staff at times can be a little less careful than I was. So I just want to monitor, are these guys not taking care of my equipment, or do they really need some new equipment? And so when I'm out in the field, I spend a bunch of time talking to them like, why is that tripod so close to the truck when someone could kick it, knock a glass over or something? So that's what I mean. Does not give you the excuse to be negligent with the care of the company's equipment. And that's tying back to this statement, asking your field surveyor to work through frustrating circumstances with an old data collector is not worth $6.25 a day. But it also means that they can't just be negligent with it. And if it breaks in a year, screw it, we'll just get a new one. So if you want to move up the professional ladder, then act like you belong and take care of your equipment. That's one of the things that I look for in my staff. Who's gone from good to great, as they say? Who does more than just care about their paycheck? Who's taking the extra pride in their work? So, Trent, anything else in the chat room yet, or?
Georgia just said you need to set up a cost budget that provides your staff with the tools they need to do the job efficiently. So,
Yep.
yep.
So I have an unlimited budget for my field surveyors. And what I mean is, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not going to deny them equipment and tools. I've been out there on 12-hour days, 100-degree heat, contractors barreling down on your ass going, where's this, where's that? And I don't want to, hold back a few $100, a few $1,000s for equipment. So I always tell my surveyors, if however you want to dress yourself with your bags, your hammers, get what you want so that you can be most efficient for the day, and I'll buy it, no problem. I also tell them that you have two options. I'll buy all your supplies for you, but they're mine. So if you leave in a year, that stuff stays. You buy it, I'll split the cost with you or something. I'll make a donation, but then they're yours. Now, I'm not trying to promote that people consider leaving the company, but I just want them to know that if you want your own equipment, just go buy it. I know I always did. Increase revenue. Here's the piece that I like to focus on. Each person in the company has a responsibility to help generate revenue. I have to tell you, there's a lot of people I talk to that say that's not my job. That's probably, as an owner of my business, the worst thing I hate to hear in my office. That's not my job to generate revenue. So I said, everyone, and let's go through a couple of these things. Field crews, I think they have a huge opportunity to generate revenue for your company. Huge. People just overlook it every day. How are you driving on the roads with your big logo on the side of your truck? Are you driving like a jackass? Sorry, my crews don't do that. That's clearly my job to do. How are you acting with your company logo on your shirt, right? I know I got a call from someone and they said, hey, I was needing to get a survey and I watched how your surveyor handled a situation in a store. Right? They didn't say your surveyor. He says he was wearing a logoed shirt and he actually helped this lady get to her car. Do you help a person in a grocery? There you go. Is your truck clean or others notice it and respect you? So I remember probably 25 years ago, I asked a question of someone and I said, hey, I was actually at the same job site. One surveyor was laying out something else on a different part of the project and I was laying out a different part. I said, did you ever get a proposal from them? And they said, no. And I asked him why. He says, did you look at how he operated? His truck was a mess, disorganized. He says, I don't want someone like that on my project. Right. And I said, that's great. Now, I did know the other surveyor. I thought he was pretty good. Right. But there was that immediate reaction to the first image. Do you accommodate your clients when they ask? I try to get my crews, if you're out on a site and the guy says, well, we're actually now thinking about doing a pool in the back of the house. Can you map that area too? Well, they'll text me real quick and I'll say, sure. Let's go do it, unless there's something critical they got to do in the afternoon. Is your work professional? As simply as writing neatly on a lath. I'll go to a construction site, and if I see a lath that I can't make out the 6 or the 8 or the 9, I'll point it out to my crew. I'll say, how's someone supposed to be able to see that cut or fill on a stake and be sure they're building it right? Right. Now we know if you can't read the 6, 8, or 9 on the hundredths, probably not a huge deal, but if you can't read it as part of the foot, that could be a real problem. So as we go through,
we'll go back one on the chat, Aaron, because it kind of fell in line with your
Sure.
with that particular one, and George had thrown there. Basically going with the care of equipment, right? maybe not drive to every single point, right? Because of the wear and tear on the trucks.
Yep.
So if it's easier and less wear and tear on the trucks, at least walk to the point, right? He says maybe even walk that 100 feet to the point instead of
Yeah.
instead of driving it. There-
There's,
there's enough things that can go wrong even with the best equipment. So yep.
yeah, I agree. I'll say that the one thing that I add to all my calculations and oversight of our budgets is personnel. Uh, Our staff, we work 9 nines, but most of our surveyors are working 10 hours a day just because we all know you don't drive an hour to a site, have a half hour topo left, and then come back. I mean, that might happen one time, but it won't happen twice. So in a 10-hour day, I don't want them feeling frustrated, and things like that. So driving to each of the points, walking, yeah, you start to find that balance. But I believe everyone should be taken into account personnel matters, right?
So
And what I wrote here is all these things to help generate revenue. Please note, not one of these need a professional license or a title that says owner.
yeah,
This can be achieved by everyone.
that's awesome.
Hang on, I might have something. Oh yeah, here it is. It's pinned on my wall. I'll read it. This is Brown's second edition. The fundamental precept of human relationship is, it is insufficient to be right. You must also persuade. The aim of the surveyor is first to know, and second, to appear to know. Appearing to know brings in clients, knowing holds them. Thus, this book has two objectives: to improve the land surveyor's knowledge of boundary location principles, and B, to increase the land surveyor's word power of persuasion. So I tell them, you're right, you may not know how to do a complex entitlement project, but you can talk to them, instill confidence, look and be presentable. That's what's going to get them to call me. And then it's my job to persuade them through my knowledge to secure the work. So it's a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We had one more in there from Will. It talks about when you're having your staff buy their own equipment if they want to. He says mechanics work to buy their own tools.
Yeah.
How do you feel about convincing the chiefs to buy their own tools, and then you as an owner rent their equipment from them on an hourly basis? You can even show them how to start an LLC and benefits to provide them with the family from a write-off standpoint. So
yeah, no, that's good. I mean, my quick reaction would be, hell no. I mean, it's $1,000 to buy survey. When I used to buy my stuff, I bought my bags and all that stuff, and it was pretty tricked out. It was probably $600 at most. Now we do provide a clothing allowance to all of our field personnel. We provide about a $400 a year clothing allowance, and that can buy jeans, boots. I always tell them, buy good boots, things like that. We also supply them with Merrimount rain gear, right? So we're supplying a lot. If we want to, I mean, I'm just looking at, they spend $2,000 on their own equipment. I rent it from them. That's going to be what, $3 a day. The nightmare of accounting and all that stuff be difficult. Now, if they're accepting that rent back, then you're getting into all kinds of tax issues with your LLC. Oh, plus you got to pay your annual LLC. So wait till your employee finds out that you have to pay in California $800 a year for your LLC license. Interesting concept. At least they're.
Well, I think
you go out there and you think about it.
yeah, and I think that might be more of a question like a chief goes and buys all of its own equipment, right? His S6, his GPS, his data collectors, the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah. And then you're renting him as a crew, basically.
Yep.
That's the conversation that he was having there.
Here's the question with that, Trent.
Yeah.
We've explored that. At what point then are they not an employee? Correct. And then they're a 1099? Correct. So, and then if that person you're renting the equipment from, are they a licensed professional or are they not? And if they're not, could that be tied to a violation of the board's registration code?
Right.
Now, I know that I'm overseeing their work, but if I'm now tied financially to renting their equipment and they're considered a 1099, then that's separation of employee employer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
for
it goes.
anyone that wants to get involved and run a business, you can just hear some of these conversations and go, oh shit, there's more to it than just hanging a shingle.
Right, right. Yeah, no, it's true. It's another one. How do you get buy-in from your non-owner staff to build the business? Like you say.
Maybe I don't understand it. How do I get buy-in from your non-owner staff
Staff.
for what?
I would say just I guess the conversations, right? Well, like you would talk about, every staff member must bring in revenue, right?
Yeah,
So how do you, I think that's probably what Jonathan's saying is.
yeah.
How do
So we have a program at the office. It's called the Oz Principle, and everyone goes through that training. Actually, that training is, I do it for everyone. Every new hire, I go through Oz Principle training. But to be honest with you, it's a concerted effort every week to just have conversations with your staff. Have discussions. Don't make it an employer-employee relationship, but take the time and invest in them, right? Have an open dialogue, have a conversation. Over time, the buy-in becomes a lot easier because now people trust you, right? They trust you as an owner. They say, you know, you're not going to screw me over, and it takes time. Not going to lie, you can't just walk into an office and go, yeah, I'm going to treat everyone really great and trust me. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You probably can't see it, but I'll try to point. But here's a pyramid, and it says experiences, beliefs, actions, and results. And so where that comes from, that's a results pyramid. Anyone who studies business, I did, you know, what they tell you to do is, if something isn't working, review your action plan. I'm here to tell you, that's the worst thing to do. What you need to do is review your experiences and beliefs to find out what is truly going wrong. Then from those experiences and beliefs, change your actions. So many people try to just change the action without understanding what's beneath it that's causing that action to shift.
With that, the latest Traverse that just came out, I wrote an article about servant leadership, which we kind of talked about a little bit at our roundtable conversation. So
yeah,
you might even got your Traverse today in the mail, or should be getting it here. But that was one of the things I just wrote in there as well. Ben put in there, experience breeds respect. Respect of clients breeds authority. So
yeah,
yep.
That's great.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yep, good one. Cool. Okay, well, we're caught up. Unless somebody else want to unmute or ask another question, and then you're on slide 12.
Yeah. So now we can start getting into the business side of things. You know, what they call is fixed overhead or variable overhead. Most survey firms are running off of what they call a fixed overhead cost. So things like, well, I'll just read it. No matter what, those costs will remain if one crew or 10 crews are out, like rent, car insurance, car payments, medical, E&O insurance. So right now, I think Adobe has 17 vehicles under our umbrella. So if we sort of lay everyone off because a massive recession hit, 2008 or whatever, we're still going to have those car payments. We're going to have to insure them. Maybe we can take a few of those cars and put them on idle insurance or something. The car payments are going to exist, the rent, all those benefits are still going to hit. So that's why most survey firms are a fixed overhead. You know, you're not a widget company where the production of widgets increases your overhead, things like that. So this means more revenue starts to help defray the fixed costs. So if you've got 10 employees working, then in their billable rates, there's a calculation for that overhead, whatever that number is. So if you're doing okay with 10 employees, and now you have 12 employees, well, that revenue can be shared between 12 people, not 10 people. That now starts to churn and develop greater profit margins, unless you're just not running your projects very well and you're tons of write-off and you're a poor manager. Those are other issues. But if you do pretty good, then increasing your revenue, going out, getting more jobs, hiring on 2 or 3 more people, as long as it's sustainable within your office, that's a way to increase your revenue, right? Slide 13 just says, look, don't be dumb about it. Don't secure $20 million in revenue if all you have is 1 licensed surveyor, 2 drafters, and 2 field crews, and then make all these commitments to people going, you betcha. And then at the end of the year, you're being sued for breach.
For 19 million.
Yeah,
Because you could barely do $1 million with that much body.
yeah. I know. So anyway, what I said in slide 14 is doing both is just a good fiscal approach. Most surveyors, actually most businesses that aren't driven from a business education, it's so service oriented, architects, engineers, accountants probably understand it better, but they're always looking to, how do I reduce costs? Because they feel like that's under their control, right? They can call Verizon and say, look, take me from the gold plated plan to the bronze plated plan. And all of a sudden they save $200 a month. When shift your thinking, right? Just make that shift. So doing both is good. When you cut the cost, it's generally the employees who suffer the most, right? And the owners suffer, but you made the decision, so I say tough shit. But employees suffer the most because now they're out with bad equipment. They're frustrated. They know that the boss really wants to get this job today, but I've had to reboot 6 times. I can't get connection to the office and get the new coordinates. However you run your business, that stuff becomes a small piece to your day-to-day operations. I know when that supplier is looking at you going, yep, here's a $50,000 purchase, it hurts, but try to look at it long term. Slide 15, how can I help? Great question, glad you asked. Evaluate cost and benefits and present this. This is where I start to go off on to employees working with their employer. If they believe, or you believe, yeah, we should buy a new instrument, data collector, the whole package, well, put together something that you can show them, here are the cost benefits, and then here's some intangibles. Some bosses, they don't care about the intangibles. Me, that's most important to me, actually. You as an employee in your work environment is most important to me. The other pieces, that's just equipment, cash, things like that. I can solve those generally. So put something together when you want to approach them about new equipment. Evaluate the costs and benefits and present this. Give them the financial pieces of the data, but also give them the intangibles. Let them see that you're in the middle of a hot day and your data collector blows up and you got to reboot. Now, all these things I'm saying, it's just what my surveyors say to me once in a while. So, but I watch them out in the field. The equipment loses lock because it's an older model, and you go behind a tree or some leaves. Now I watch that thing, just scanning all over the place to find the rod. We got some new equipment, and I'll go through it with how we approached it. How can this help our team members in the office or field? Explain why. The camaraderie. Again, if you work for a person that doesn't care about you, then this piece of the intangibles is going to be harder to get approved. You're going to have to drive strictly numbers. I don't know who else is on this show. I know Trent would, I know you would clearly want to know that your staff has a great work environment, more so than an extra $5,000 on equipment. So
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
it pans out. Let's just take a new field setup. And I just threw out this number because that's roughly what we paid for a new gun, data collector, rod, bipod, some stuff like that. And here I broke it down. Instrument, I think I got a pretty good deal on this stuff, but I don't know. I was okay with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're just missing your GPS because when you first put in 35,000, I'm like, I typically budget for 100 grand for the truck, the equipment,
Oh, yeah,
the full setup. But yeah, for just replacing equipment, right?
yeah.
Yeah, this would be
This is just like, an instrument type setup. You're right. I tell our staff that when our trucks are rolling down the road full speed, it's 100 grand.
yeah, exactly.
I said, if that thing crashes and totals, you're spending 100 grand.
Yep, exactly.
So here's just some, one of your surveyors for your robot crew says, hey, I'd like a new setup. Well, here's what it is, 35 grand. 35 grand financed for 3 years at 5%. You're looking at 1,048.98 a month, 52.45 a day. And then I say, I don't know what people are billed at.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
what's that?
I was gonna say, yeah, the 150 depends on the part of the country, right? I mean, that could be
Yeah,
from 300 to $85 an hour, pretty much on the Zoom call, I would imagine. But
exactly. Well,
yeah,
I hope also then the purchasing power doesn't perfectly correlate, but a little bit. Our survey crews, robotic survey crew is between 185 and 200 dollars an hour. So all you're looking to do is save $52 a day, 150. Will it save you 20 minutes a day, make you more efficient? But let's just say it's a break even, but the person goes from frustrated to loving life. I don't know, maybe that's worth it. Here's my example. I was using a certain brand of equipment, wasn't up to what I thought after talking with the surveyors. And so we worked with a guy that was trying to get my business for about 5 or 10 years. And I called him, I says, hey, give me a demo. So he did, gave me a screaming deal. And then what we did was 2 months later, we bought another one. And towards the end of the year, he called up and he said, Aaron, what do you think? You want to buy one more? I go, you give me the right offer, I'll buy it. And he did. So here we go. So in 1 year, I probably spent 100 grand on 3 setups. And so this is where business owners get to understand cash flow and financing, what's best for them. The first one, they offered 0% interest for 2 years. I said, sure, I'll do that. $13.33 a month, $66 a day. The second one, I don't like having bills. So I says, let me put 10 grand down on it. That came down to, whatever, $32 a day or something, right? Then the last one I bought outright because I wanted, we're having a pretty good year. So I talked with our CPA and I says, I'm just going to buy this one outright. So I won't take the depreciation. I'll just take it as an expense completely this year. But that's for the owners to start to noodle on. As employees trying to go and talk with them, these are some of the things you can look at, or the intangibles. Said in here, tax benefits are a whole different animal for another day to understand that. Yeah, holy cow, another day is right. What I'll say is I went out with the surveyors and I watched them. They showed me the things that they could do. And that's really why I bought the second piece. And then they loved it and we bought the third piece. So, when you're thinking about it, I know I was using like an instrument setup, the rod, gun, data collector, tripods, all that stuff. But you can look at other things. I was out with a crew and the pipe finder didn't work very well. And I went, hey man, I know they're about $1,000 or whatever, but that's an important piece of what you use every day, especially if you know how to use it.
Exactly.
So I was a little surprised at some of the equipment when I would go out with them. I was going, why haven't we bought a new one? And then rarely does the conversation change. I just bought you one a year ago. Why does it look like this? And that's a whole different conversation. But here we get into really small stuff, right? I mean, hammers, diggers, shovels, manhole pullers, special gear, rain gear, whatever part of the region you're working in. These are all the things that I think sometimes surveyors, they just clam up and instead of thinking at the other side of the ledger, well, how could we generate more revenue to give our staff more freedom to have great equipment? And it's a small price to pay, actually. I'm a diehard field surveyor. I love the woods. I love getting out there, getting dirty. I just don't do it anymore. So when these guys come and talk to me about field supplies, I don't shy away. I'm like, what do you need and why? Talk to me about the why. And then if it's even remotely plausible, I go, yeah, let's do it. Right? Let's do it. So I know it's not good to always deject staff. So it's good to say once in a while, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. Bring some energy into them. So it was just more so to get some ideas going. I've done a bunch of seminars that go much more in depth into operations of a business from like an owner or PM side of things. And those tend to go really fast, a lot of fun. More than happy to dive more in depth to business, but Trent, to be honest, I was looking at your mentoring Mondays and going, how do we become a mentor, not a teacher on this? And
Yeah,
that's
sure.
why I geared it down to here. And
Yeah, no worries.
I'll say I'm a huge advocate for finance. I don't think anyone should be able to graduate high school or college without a semester of finance. Just basic. What is an interest rate? What is compound interest? What is an amortization schedule? How do you evaluate? Is this worth it? You go to a car dealership, they're classic. They're like, yeah, you want that really, really fancy thing over there? Can you afford $700 a month? And most people would sit there and say, yeah, actually I can. Really, I could have that for 700 a month? Yep. And then all of a sudden you find out it's a 17% interest rate and it's over 9 years and you go, holy shit. And you find out what you really paid for it. So, it's especially in this market these days, one of the reasons I think housing is going to correct is because the interest rates, your purchase power, shit, do the math. You just lost probably $100,000 to $200,000 in purchase power in some regions of the country. Well, up in wine country, I can say you lost $150,000 to $200,000 in purchase power just as what the feds have done in the last 90 days. So
Yeah,
with
they're,
that $800,000 house you wanted to buy, well, now you got to look at the $600,000 house because your interest rate just sucked up the other $700 in mortgage you could afford.
yeah, that was the latest one I saw was basically 500 grand at basically 2.5%, right? Is the same now as 350 at 6.5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that's why they're saying there's a minimum 30% correction coming just because of the interest rates, right?
Yep. No, that's it. But
Yep.
so many people don't understand those things, right, Trent? And
Right.
and that's where I think these people in high school and college, you got to take a finance class. You got to understand what that purchase power means and how to leverage it, right? So there are times, look at, you go out, you have no other choice but to start a business because you just lost your job and there's no work available. And someone says, yeah, I'll sell you that instrument at 12% interest rate. And I'll do it over 7 years. It's at a monthly payment that you can afford. Hey, you might have to do that. But if you've got options, you should at least know how to weigh your options. So,
Uh, Jonathan, you threw in the chat, the Financial Peace University. Is that a Ramsey thing? When I type that in, it comes up under Ramsey. Is that what that's? I don't know.
what is it?
Oh, okay. Jonathan put in there when you're talking about personal finance, the Financial Peace University, which is a Dave Ramsey's course.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So he threw that in there he said that was a good piece for him as well. So
yeah, and so my brother and his wife really follow the Dave Ramsey model and all that. I haven't, but if that's something that people can get in there and get some tutorials at low cost, they should. I mean, I'm sorry. As you can see, I just get a little bent out of shape when people don't have an understanding about their money.
right.
And the plug for next week is Bill is still going to speak, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Bill's on next week. Yes, sir.
So I'll tell you, Bill Rowland is my personal financial advisor, and I asked him if he'd be interested. I could do it. I wrote a big article for my company about 401ks, retirement, compounding interest, the difference between starting early versus late. Ran through all these scenarios. I'll tell you, it's nothing shy of eye-opening when you start to realize compound interest rates, things like that. So there's no plug. He has no desire to walk away with new clients, but I think it's a mission of just educating people on what this stuff means, right? And how important it is. I'm 51. My first year of saving for retirement was at 21, and I've never stopped since. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go for it, George.
Okay, with all these people with these huge credit card debts, obviously they aren't paying attention because we have credit cards here at my house. Guess what? It's no interest if you pay the damn thing off every month. And if you don't have the money to do it, don't spend it.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, actually, George, I'll go one step further. You're actually making money if you know how to fiscally use your credit card, because I get $3,000 to $4,000 a year of cash back, and I pay off my credit card, and so I use it, pay it off, and then at the end of the year, and here's my deal. I tell my wife, I say, whatever is left after Thanksgiving, you can have for your Christmas money, right? And she loves it. She's like, that's all mine. Yep, every cent.
We paid for a good trip of our part of our trip from New Orleans that way. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, what
pay attention.
What the problem is, though, George, and you hit on it, is that people look at their monthly payment and they go, their minimum is $75, right? And then so they go, well, I'm going to pay $100. So they've paid down about $45 of their actual principal on a $5,000 loan.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Sometimes that debt is necessary because maybe you got laid off, or maybe you got injured and you can't work. Whatever reason, debt, it's okay to get into debt, and sometimes you got to just work your way out of it. Yeah. So my daughter's getting married next month.
There are a lot of people that aren't smart enough to put away 5 or 6 months worth of their expenses in savings, so that if that does happen, or if they have a big medical expense, they've got something to fall back on for at least a little while.
Yep. And with that, George, I heard something. I was listening to a podcast. Oh, you know who it was actually? Steve Harvey.
Okay.
I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of his, but sometimes when he gets deep into some conversations, I'm like, that's pretty good. He said you should have 4 bank accounts in a marriage. You should, one, put every month, every dollar you earn into the joint account, you and your wife. Out of that, you should have a savings account. right? And out of that savings, out of that joint account, you pay all the bills. Out of that joint account, you pay your savings account. And here's the next principle is that you should look at your savings account as a bill. You should put some money into that savings account. And then the last two accounts is his and her accounts, where if there's any money left over, you agree to put some into each of those accounts, and you can use that however you want, right, without question from your partner. And I start looking at that and I go, yeah, that's actually a really good way to start your marriage, right? Is everything goes into the joint. I don't care if you make $5 an hour and I make $50 an hour. We're pooling our resources, and then you tier it out.
Well,
So,
what we did in our marriage is I've given my wife every dollar I've made. She's put it in our joint account. We do have savings accounts, but what she's basically done is she spent the first dollar and she's buried the rest in Tupperware in the backyard someplace because she knows I have a metal detector. She's pretty much got everyone after the first one.
George, could you send me your address? Because I'd like to make you a healthy offer for your house.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you gonna go after it with a backhoe, or are you gonna use GPR?
No, yeah, I might use both. I'm going to first evaluate the cost expense ratios.
So I truly, I gotta say, I'm a lucky man.
That's right. That's awesome. What'd you say?
Thank-
What are you at, George? 48, 47, 48 years?
We will be 50 next August,
Okay. Yeah. I knew you're coming up. That's awesome.
and together 52.
Yeah. That's awesome. I get 20 next week. We're doing a whole
That's-
renewal. Yeah. We're renewing our vows again. We did it at our 10-year anniversary as well. So
That's 40% that's 40% of what I've got.
see, exactly.
And we just celebrated her 35th birthday for the second time.
Exactly.
Trent, you have any other comments in that chat box?
No, we are caught up on that. And then of course, if anybody wants to unmute, there was we have a long one coming. Don't want to leave, but unfortunately, okay, got an urgent meeting. Okay, sounds good. Anybody can unmute yourself if you guys want to ask Aaron a question. Like you said, next week will be kind of on personal finance stuff as well, and 401ks and that kind of stuff. But anybody have business related questions they want to ask?
I just can't believe we don't teach basic financing in high school anymore. They taught it when I was in high school.
Yeah, me
I
too.
mean, it's ridiculous. It really needs to be taught. I mean, if you can't figure out how to balance a checkbook, well, nobody uses those anymore. But if you can't figure out how to keep track of your own account, you're gonna be helpless and taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be subject to the person sitting across the table from you and how honest and ethical they are. You're going to be subject to them, and that's a scary place to be at times.
For sure.
Yeah, and the sad thing is you're probably not going to realize that until it's too late.
Yeah, you won't realize till years later and go, he screwed me. And you go, yep, I sure did. Or she. I don't know. Use any pronoun you want these days.
There you go. Anybody got anything?
Good stuff, Aaron.
Yeah, it's always good stuff.
Yeah, no, and I'll admit, Trent threw a softball out there. He says, hey, what other topics could we talk about? And as you guys say, I get pretty passionate about business and finance. We're all surveyors. We can go dig those monuments up and do some math and read some deeds, but there's so much more to surveying out there, right? And surveying is a great profession. I think it can serve you well, both spiritually and financially.
For sure. Jerry just threw in the chat, insurance.
Interns?
Insurance.
Oh, insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a whole nother rabbit hole or what?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah. We just renewed all of our insurances. I was a little flabbergasted at all the costs.
Yeah.
And don't screw up or it gets worse.
Yeah. Right.
Don't screw up or it gets worse. So Aaron, you're in Santa Rosa?
Yep.
Say hi to Dorothy for me, will you please?
Yeah, I'll see her this weekend, actually. I went out to dinner with her about a month ago, and then I'll see her this weekend.
Tell her I said hi. We've been friends since the 70s.
Oh, nice.
George, both of you actually put write-ups in the Travers this month. So
Oh, really?
yeah, because
Uh-oh.
Aaron put in for Dorothy as well. So
Great lady. Great lady.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
well, nobody's got anything, but if something comes up, obviously Aaron's got his thing on the screen here. I will throw in the email follow-up as well. Reach out to Aaron or myself if you got any kind of business related type questions, and we'll see what
Trent,
we
let
can
me
do.
ask you,
Yeah.
I've talked with enough of your staff and I think you do a great job. What else do you see? Anything that you want to share?
You hit on a lot of the topics as well. Kind of just I always talk to the guys about, if you need something, let me know and we're going to buy it. Right? Anything to make your job more efficient. And then of course I will not allow anybody to have broken equipment whatsoever. That's if same with you. Like show up and go look in a truck and there's something, a rod that's put together with tape or something like that. I just can't stand that, because one, it's an image, right? It goes
Right.
goes back to the image. And two, from the field guys, especially from the chief side. So our trucks are fully loaded. I let the guys do tires and wheels and whatever, right? It's their office. And
Yep.
so I make those guys treat it as their office, and you can do what you want with it. We have all of them have memberships to the car washes, right? Same type of
Yep.
thing. Making sure that they're at least cleaned by Monday morning, that kind of stuff. And so I'm on almost everything that you hit on, and I don't really I was laughing as you were chatting, because we're so similar. I'm in the same situation, 17 18 trucks, run 7 8 crews, that kind of stuff. And there's a few office staff that do both field and office, and so they all have trucks. But the one thing that maybe that we didn't hit on here as well that I thought would be important is additional equipment, right? So when stuff breaks down, do you have a full backup setup?
Yeah.
Which I do. We have backups for everything, and so we have backup trucks, especially now, with lead times on getting a vehicle fixed. Like we had we had a transmission go down on one of them, and it was there for a month and a half.
Oh,
And
geez.
so if you don't have, and because the lead time on getting parts to fix this stuff is so far out. So if you don't have backup trucks, which if you haven't budgeted for, right? So we have multiple backup trucks, we have multiple equipment, or crews in a situation where, like whether I have these guys in the office in the field, we have full sets of gear sitting around in the office because that office field to finish guy is not out. And so there's the backup data collectors and equipment and guns and all that kind of stuff. Because the last thing you want to do, right, goes back to the customer service, tell somebody you can't show up. Budget for as you grow. I mean, we're 32 employees now, and so as you grow, start to add those budget type stuff in, having that extra truck, having that, or as you're, don't trade in that truck, right? And that's what we've done on a few occasions. We typically, I try to keep our trucks right around 3 years. But we're trading them in with probably 100,000 miles after 3 years as well. But don't trade in that truck, right? And keep it so that you have a backup, and then go purchase another one. So it's I would say those are probably some of the things that we do, that maybe that we didn't talk about tonight, is just making sure you have full backups, because the lead times on some of the stuff, you could be down maybe your service provider or survey supplier doesn't have a loaner because he's already loaned out his 3 others, and then what are you going to do? So that would be I guess my biggest one. There's a couple of hands up in there. I'll go with Nick. He raised his hand real quick. So contracts for subcontracted work. Okay, you threw that in the chat, but I'll let you unmute yourself and go for it, Nick. Maybe. Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, so I'm just starting out my company, and my initial workload is going to be pretty much subcontracting myself, my own like party chief services to local surveying firms. And I just wanted to kind of see your thoughts on that situation, and if I should be, what kind of contract I should have before performing that type of work,
Okay.
or what your experience is with that type of working relationship.
Got it. So, Aaron, Nick had just kind of joined us here a little bit ago. So we actually had this conversation a little bit earlier, Nick, about.
Sorry,
No,
sorry,
no,
I couldn't.
no, you're totally fine. It's all good. Glad you jumped on and we can talk about it. So, I guess the summary of it, right, is when you're contracting to another survey firm, and so one of the things like Aaron had brought up was, does your state, by having an LLC, how are you structured, or what kind of business are you structured as, right? If you're in the state of Nevada, we require written contracts for all work, and so to protect you and to maybe protect your survey company that you're working for, right? Is it going to be a fixed fee situation, or are you working for them on a T&M basis? Are you doing maybe just boundary topos for them, or are you going to kind of start doing construction layout for them? So what maybe highlight a couple of those, and then maybe we can kind of hit on a couple of those. What do you think your business model is going to be in that situation? And then two, I guess, one, licensed, non-licensed, where are you at in the licensing process?
So I'm still working on my surveying degree. I'm a junior in the 4-year program.
Yeah.
So I still have a couple of years of school left. I'm just taking part-time classes.
Got it.
Initially, so my first job that I got was a boundary topo, and I didn't really know how to even go about setting up this working situation because it's my first time doing it.
Yeah.
So what I wound up agreeing with was I quoted the job based on my projected hours, and the guy agreed to pay me $75 an hour for those hours, and depending on how many hours I spend out there is going to be whether I do good or bad on those hours,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I would say, like, in the situation where you're just kind of starting out and you're doing that, and do you have all your own gear, or did you buy
Yep.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would, as you start, if you go onto the construction side, that would be a whole nother nightmare, I would say, of a mess, right? Tangled web for sure. Right, Aaron?
Yeah.
So kind of a fixed fee on the boundary topo side would probably be your best business model to kind of stick with, because at that point you can say, he needs a 2-acre boundary topo, right? And you're going to say the field work cost me $800 or something like that. And, and I would work more on a fixed fee probably. And that's where it's more beneficial for, say, me as a business owner, or maybe Aaron as a business owner, if that was the avenue he wanted to take, and just say it, because I don't know your work ethic, whatever, right? And so I'm willing to pay you $800, and if it takes you 4 hours, then that's your benefit. If it takes you 18 hours, then again, that's on you, right? But it's definitely a messy situation, and I know it's getting to be a little bit more. If you watch the Facebook feeds, it's kind of be a little bit more of a common practice, I think, to some degree, or at least a lot more guys out there trying to do that. But it's interesting. As from me as a business owner, it's not something that I probably would do, but that's not me. I know there's a lot of smaller firms that would probably need the help and can't take on a full expense of an employee either. So there's that.
So Nicholas, I'll ask you a question. How are you protecting yourself from a mistake with insurance? I mean,
yeah, I'll be getting liability insurance, which covers errors and omissions, I believe.
so can you get errors and omissions without being a professional?
Well, I have a few moving parts. Maybe this is like a couple part question. So I have a licensed partner that will be signing my work. Well, when needed, when I'm working under local firms, I'll be working under their insurance and their license. But if I get just like my own private client that needs a signed and sealed survey, then I'll be doing the field work, sending it to my friend for review, and then he'll be stamping and signing and sealing it. And then I believe for that type of work, I'll need to have my own title block, which comes along with my own business insurance and errors omissions. That's how it was explained to me anyway. I'm trying to figure everything out.
Yeah.
So
What
in your-
state, what state, Nicholas?
New Jersey.
Okay.
Oh, New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you definitely want to review the mechanics of each of those, because, you know, your first statement was, well, I have a partner. Does that mean he's an equity shareholder in your firm?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're licensed. So you don't have to be licensed as long as there's one of the owners of the company is licensed, then you're good. I would actually look to build your model that you don't work under the other company's license, right? So Trent said it, and for those that may have been paying attention keenly, and he might not even know he said it, but he used the word business model. And that's something that I would encourage you to really noodle through, especially when it comes to liabilities, E&O, things like that. No one wants to make a mistake, but those bad angles pop up once in a while. AutoCAD goof, all kinds of things happen. So,
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. You can shoot me an email. We can kind of chat about it too a little bit if you want.
yeah.
The Adam threw in there, does an unlicensed contractor for field work lie under direct supervision? This is a question as I have just started a position to establish a survey department for a company.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is each state is different. So that's why early on, I was talking about, well, if you're subbing out with maybe your own equipment, well, that's really not an employee, and you can't have direct supervision over a 1099 consultant, right? So under the IRS regulations, if they're truly a 1099 consultant, they have to be able to operate independently. So there's the 1099 provision that no one's aware of, but they're saying, well, wait a minute, this is me over here working and collecting this data for you, and you're paying the money for it, but the IRS says you can't be a technician, you have to be a professional, because you have to have, because you're a 1099 consultant. So sometimes one concept from one side of the road doesn't match the other side, and then you find yourself in a real issue, because if you make a mistake and then you go back to your E&O insurance, and your E&O insurance says that, you know, you got to be a professional or an independent contractor, and you're not, then all of a sudden they're not covering your insurance. So, and then it depends on if you have other assets. If the only other asset you have is your bicycle that you get to work in, well, okay, sue me.
Yeah, exactly. One of the same situation with that, right? With the 1099 employees, the whole thing behind it, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck, right? Which is the employee standpoint. So if you have a 1099 employee working for you and you say, hey, be here at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and you're going to work from 6 to 2:30 or something like that with 15-minute breaks, yada, yada, yada. Those are the conversations where it's,
You're an employee.
you're telling them how to do their job when they're technically a 1099 and they're under their own direct, however they want to handle it. So if you're hiring a 1099, he can come at noon if he wants. You can't tell him to be there at 6 a.m. That's part of the kind of the whole walk like a duck, talk like a duck conversation there. So
Yeah.
George had his hand
Hey.
up again. Somebody just
Hey,
go.
it's Nick
Yeah,
again.
go
Sorry.
ahead, Nick. No, you're good.
So, one of you had mentioned about 1099 employees and in relation to the direct supervision requirement.
Yeah.
And that actually came up at a meeting I was at just last week. And the way that it was explained to me is we're on a Zoom call right now, right? So technically, the license guy could be on a Zoom call with, well, I had asked it slightly different, in regards to like a remote situation where the people aren't even in the same part of the state. So there's really a lack of like by the book direct supervision. So if you bring this Zoom technology into the picture, it kind of takes that issue off the table essentially, because he could be out there in the field with you from another country technically. So I don't know if that if you guys had talked about that all, but I just wanted to share.
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you so of course I'm in Nevada, and we actually a few years ago, our state board removed what we call the brick and mortar statute. And so you didn't physically have to have an LS overseeing 50% of the work in say Las Vegas or Reno, right? So what that did was, if a company up in Reno has an LS and he lives in Reno, and they hired a bunch of field staff in Las Vegas and opened an office with field staff in Las Vegas, that overseer in Reno and his license still oversees the work, even though he's not physically in the office in Las Vegas. So that was something we did, the state board did a few years ago, and kind of removed that. And so other states may have that same situation, or there's states where there's maybe that brick and mortar requirement is still there, right? Where you got to have somebody physically, an LS in that office during working hours for more than 50% of the time to be considered, the overseer of the work. And so depends, again, goes back to that whole depends on your state laws. So.
And it's also, the metrics are always very vague. So it's your personal judgment on what your responsible charge, and are you fulfilling it? And let me tell you, there's only one way to really find out if you're fulfilling it: deposition.
Yeah.
And that's always a hoot.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Go for it, George. Sorry, I know you were there for a minute.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure whether I was lucky or unlucky, but I managed to get myself a job with a surveyor friend of mine back in the early 80s. He had just started a business. He had a degree in business administration. He was also licensed as a surveyor, and he kind of gave myself and a couple other licensed surveyors a pretty good start on running a business, but he left out some of the more important financial features later on down the road, which I wish he'd have spent the time to enlighten us with, because his approach was, hey, gee guys, we're running, our cash flow problem is really getting pretty out of hand. So this other surveyor and I had a real good solution to that. We just went and got more work. I mean, and we had jobs. We would do our billing every month and for our personal projects that we had, and we never knew if they got paid for or what, so we might be working 4 months down the line, we might be working for some deadbeat contractor that didn't pay his bills, and that's what eventually got us in trouble, was not having the ability to have that knowledge to know whether things were being followed through on with the collection of the bills. And it was a scary deal, but again, the solution was go get more work. And it worked for quite a few years. I think I was there 25 years, but it was a scary situation. And when the business sold, we found 3 subdivisions. The business was mainly based on construction surveying, and that was his business plan. We were a surveying only firm. We had no engineers, so we were a surveying only firm, and we worked for all the engineering firms that did not have surveying, because they didn't want to have us because they were too expensive to have in-house. So it was a pretty good niche that he found, really. But yeah, we had a couple clients that were not too good to us, and that eventually was the demise.
And that's a great point, George, because that's it kind of goes back, you had some conversations about office and field and working together as a team and understanding, you know, the kind of the project. That was one of the things in your chat, but it's the same conversation from business owner and, or, you know, controller in Aaron's situation, understanding those AR situations and who's the good clients, who's the bad clients. Sometimes we've had these conversations on here before. Sometimes you do have to quote unquote fire a client, right? Because they're just, their AR is so bad all the time. But if you're not having those conversations with the PMs who are actually delivering that final product, that's again on the business owner for not having those conversations. So it's a good point, George.
We're a surveying company, not a loan company.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, that's a whole
This is
nother
bottom line,
conversation.
really.
When someone asks me to bankroll their project, I go, sure, 24%. They
yeah,
go,
exactly.
shitting me?
Yeah,
That's my offer. You don't have to take it.
right. Exactly.
Love it.
I will say, you know, over the last 87 sessions of Mentoring Monday, the word communication has probably been used all 87 times on Mentoring Mondays, right? And so same situation, right? The communication, and like Aaron, I'm the same situation. I'm an open book. I tell the staff all the numbers and all the different things, and the good and the bad, right? And so you just have to. So
It's you got to do it with everybody, from your chairman up to your party chiefs to your licensed personnel.
Yep.
Oh, and don't forget your client.
right, yeah, exactly. So anybody, that was good. That was awesome. Anybody else got anything else they want to chime in about?
Good job,
Nick,
Aaron.
yeah, exactly. Of course. Good job, Aaron. Nick, you can if you want, you can email and we can have some sidebar conversations if you want. So
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry I'm late.
oh no, you're fine. No worries. Hey, we're all
Is
busy.
this recorded or will
Yeah.
it be posted?
Yep. These are all recorded. It'll be posted next, I don't know, couple 48 hours or less. So I'll have it
Okay,
on the
great.
website and the YouTube channel. So
Thanks a lot.
of course.
All right.
All right,
Trent,
guys.
Thanks so much. And
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
I always think you deserve a round of applause for your effort. I mean, I think you're like
Thank you, sir.
Superman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Well, you're my superhero anyway. You can call yourself whatever you want. You're still
All
my
right.
superhero.
I love it. Have a good week, everybody.
All right, buddy.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.